Xavier Disley is an elite sports performance consultant and an aerodynamics expert. If you look closely at the bikes in the World Tour, you might start noticing a lot of Aerocoach products designed by Xavier and his team. We asked him for his 10 most bang-for-buck aero gains, and this is what he said.
A better body position when you can hold it, because we know that holding a better aero position on the bike vastly outweighs pretty much everything that you can do in terms of your equipment and stuff like that. So if you're able to hold a better position, and by a better position we mean on a road bike generally a slightly lower torso angle is what you're aiming for. Needs to be sustainable, but you've seen people do the Tour de France and breakaways and things like that.
I forgot how hard it was holding positions like that. You definitely have to practice them, don't you?
So if you can hold yourself a little bit lower on the bike, then that is an aero gain and it's free, and the more training you can do and maybe do a bit of strength and conditioning to enable you to hold those kind of positions, then that'll outweigh like the vast majority of everything else you can do. The next one would be tighter clothing. Now we know that clothing has a massive impact on the aerodynamic drag because you're about 80% of the drag of the total bike and rider system, so your bike's about 20%, and making you more aero. So as we discussed, your position is really important, but if you can make your clothing tighter so it's not flapping around so much, which is bad for aerodynamics, then that's free, and it's a really good way of improving your aero drag. So I'd put that as number 2. Similar to that would be number 3, which is shaving your legs. Now, I know a lot of people maybe don't want to do this, but unfortunately it is the case that shaved legs are more aerodynamic. Because if you imagine let's say you cover the down tube of your bike in hair, you'd know that would be a bad thing to do from an aero point of view. Shaving your legs is free, so if you're able to do it, then I'd recommend doing that because that's quite a good aero gain.
Can you give me any rough stats around shaving legs? And also, my second question, what about shaving arms if you have very hairy arms?
So if you have very hairy arms, then the easier thing to do is just to wear a long sleeve tight top, which would cover that up. The savings from hairy legs will obviously depend on how hairy your legs are, but you can often see a similar saving as you would do going from a flappy jersey to a tighter jersey. So at 30k an hour, you could see 5 watts more, which is quite a lot, to be honest. Your legs are in relatively free airflow, so there's nothing in front of them, so they create a lot of drag on their own. So anything you can do to make them more aero is a good idea. So if you're doing a ride of about an hour or so, let's say you're doing 40k and it takes you over an hour, just over an hour, then you're looking at about a minute actually for 5 watts. Which is quite a lot, I'd say. Yeah, quite a lot. Something else you can do that's free is removing extra stuff on your bike. So let's say you're going on a ride and it's not that long and you only need 1 water bottle, for example, or you've got like a massive saddlebag and you don't really need that much. You could maybe put it in your pocket if you have a spare tube or a pump, and tidying the cables up on your bike if it's got exposed cables. All those things are free, and removing bits and bobs from the bike that will create aero drag on their own is a great idea. So that would be a nice free thing you can do to speed yourself up as well. Something else you could do, if you're able to and you don't have too much of an integrated bike and it wouldn't be a pain, would be to go to slightly narrower handlebars. We know that getting yourself narrower on a road bike is generally speaking more aero, and if you go from something that's pretty wide, because some companies do spec quite wide handlebars on their bikes these days, to a narrower bar. So by narrow, I'd say sub 40 centimeters. Depending on your size, you might be able to get away with a 36 centimeter bar, a 38. You could be saving up to 4 or 5 watts by doing that, especially if you're coming from something wide like a 42 or a 44, because again, it makes the rider more aerodynamic, and that's the thing you're looking to try and do, is to get the rider more aero, because that's a big part of it. The next one is kind of similar, but if you're able to, let's say you're a recreational rider and you do long rides and you want to stay comfortable and aerodynamic, aero bars are brilliant. So if you're able to put aero bars on your bike, everyone knows they're more aero, right? But it really does make a big difference. You could be saving, 3 times as much as you would get if you put narrower road handlebars on. So you could be saving about 15 watts if you just put aero bars on. And again, it's because it gets you into a more aero position. Lowers your torso angle, gets you a bit more narrow, can be much more comfortable for the long endurance rides too. So they can be a little bit expensive, certainly on more integrated bikes, can be a bit difficult to fit them, but aero bars are a really great one to do. If we move on to spending money, then you could get more aero clothing. So Obviously, tighter fitting clothing is really good, but if you spent a little bit of extra money on clothing that's got technology in it to make you more aero, so whether that's the fabrics or the cut or whatever, you can get, for example, a road suit, which is basically like a skin suit, which has a zippable front all the way down. Then that would be something that would save you 2 or 3 watts over a really nicely fitting bibs and jersey combo. Something like socks would be a good idea as well. So that's a pretty good one. Again, you're making the rider more aero. You can see a theme with that. And that'll save you 2 or 3 watts or so overall. There's another thing you could do to make you more aero, and the last one is your helmet. Now, there are some helmets that are designated as aero road helmets that are pretty good. There are some that are not so good, but if you're going from a helmet that has lots of vents that's really not designed for racing use, then it's unlikely to be aerodynamic. Whereas if you use something that's more like what the pros have, then it's going to be, usually with the bigger companies, it's going to have been tested in a wind tunnel or something like that, and it is going to make quite a bit of difference. On a road bike, you're sat up in the air, there's quite a lot of free airflow over your head, so similarly to what you do if you shaved your legs, because your head's in kind of open airflow, making that more aerodynamic is a good idea. So an aero road helmet, although it can be a little bit expensive sometimes, is quite a good saving for the cost. So you could be saving a couple of watts by doing that over a helmet that's not designed to be aerodynamic at all. One other thing you can do on the bike to make the bike more aero is deeper wheels. So that can be a bit of a cost. Obviously, there are a lot more kind of options these days for deep wheels, and you don't have to go crazy with it. You don't have to have 100mm wheels for regular recreational riding. But if you go from a very shallow aluminium rim that's only sort of 20mm deep to let's say a carbon wheel that's about 50mm deep, you'll notice the difference. It will be more aerodynamic, and you'll be saving yourself 3, 4, 5 watts depending on which ones you get, and it makes your bike look better as well. So that's, although it is more on the more expensive side of the upgrades that you can make to your bike and you the rider, it definitely does help. So it would be a really good upgrade if you can do it. So the last thing that we can do that isn't necessarily aerodynamics but is important for speed is looking at your inner tubes and your tires. Now, improving the quality of your inner tubes and tires will reduce your rolling resistance and allow you to travel down the road with less watts than you did before, in a similar way to making yourself more aerodynamic. It actually matters more, your rolling resistance, when you're going uphill too. So if you do a lot of climbing, then focusing on your tires is really important. The cheapest way of doing that is just replacing your inner tubes. So if you run butyl tubes, the thick black ones, and you change to a lighter tube, some of these PU tubes and plasticized tubes or latex tubes, that's not much of an expense. And yes, they're lighter, but that's not the point. The point is that they have a lower rolling resistance. They reduce the rolling resistance of your wheels. Tires are a good one too. Tires can be quite expensive these days, unfortunately, but if you can upgrade your tires, there's some good resources out on the internet to let you compare different brands of tires, independent tests and things. We've got some of that on our website actually. So if you want to improve your tires, then that's a good way of doing it too. So rolling resistance I tend to lump it in with aero because all of it makes you faster out on the road without having to actually do anything extra. And it is a really big component of it. So definitely focus on those.
So did he miss anything? Let us know your bang for buck aero gains in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching this video, and please subscribe to this channel for more.